Everybody knows that the Detroit Lions are gunning for a Super Bowl in 2025. But what would be more sweeter than to bring back a familiar face to get one last ride in? We're going to talk about it. So stay tuned, everybody.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, all Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. Folks, I'm going to tell you something right now. As we all know, there has been a lot of conversation, there's been a lot of talk about the most recent bit of news, and I'll say this, it was a little bit unexpected, albeit it's been very highly received, very highly warm, it's been very warm received news in the sense that, you know, the current Eagles cornerback, Darius Slay, who used to play for us, has recently stated that if for whatever reason the Eagles were not interested in bringing him back, that the only other team he would really want to play for would be come back here and play for the team that drafted him, the Detroit Lions. Now, let's just call for what it is. This is exciting news for a lot of Lions fans because, well, when Darius Slay was here from 2013 to 2019, he was a fan favorite. And obviously, there was the whole thing that happened when he got shipped out of here in 2020. There was a lot of stuff that came out after that about the personal issues he had with then head coach Matt Patricia, all of which were pretty much because of Matt Patricia being the kind of person that he was at that time. Can't really speak to who he is right now, but that's what I know from then. I will say this right now. If someone were to ask me directly what my thought process is, what my opinion is on Darius Slay coming back here and, playing one final season to chase down one more Super Bowl ring, I honestly wouldn't mind it because I'm a little bit of a sentimental person. Plus, on top of that, Darius Slay was one of the better draft picks that the Lions had from the 2010 eras, of which there weren't that many. So for me, it's kind of like, okay, we have this opportunity here to really, bring back somebody that was a really good player for us. Things kind of went sour due to the management back then. So for me, it's kind of like a good story. It really would be an awesome story to behold. However, the problem is that this does pose an issue and have a massive question mark surrounding the Lions' current free agent cornerback of their own, Carlton Davis. I'm going to say this right now. We can talk about Darius Slay all you want, but it's like, okay, what about Carlton Davis? And I know that for some people, Carlton Davis, they're like, well, why would we want Carlton Davis if we can go out and get Darius Slay? But I'm just going to play some devil's advocate here for you. Let's think about this for half a second. If you think about it, the Lions traded a third-round draft pick just last offseason for Carlton Davis. So it's not like we just traded chump change to get this guy. And regardless of what some people want to say about Carlton Davis, I'm going to actually prove to you here in this episode that Carlton Davis actually played particularly well for the Detroit Lions. Yeah, trust me. I know that might sound a little bit crazy to some people, but when I'm done, the stats and the analytics are going to show it in freaking bold colors. So to me, the idea, first and foremost, of getting rid of a guy like Carlton Davis after we traded a third-round draft pick for him for, in essence, a one-year rental, it kind of seems absurd. Now, I will say this. I'm still not against the idea of bringing in Darius Slay and bringing back Carlton Davis. I mean, the more cornerbacks you have, the better. Plus, on top of that, Carlton Davis is a savvy vet. So is, Darius Slay. They'd be able to really help, bring some experience and leadership, again, to that secondary room, especially when you got Terry and Arnold coming back after his rookie year. Rakestraw didn't really play a whole lot in his first year, so it's like, okay, I could see some value in that. But again, it brings back the question of, okay, you've got all these other people that you have to potentially sign as well. So money's still going to be a bit of an issue, especially if you're trying to do all these big acquisitions and big re-signs like Hutch, JMO. If you do decide to bring back Carlton Davis, on top of that, if you try to make a trade for a guy like Myles Garrett or Max Crosby or one of the Bosa brothers or one of the Watt brothers, whatever the case is. So it's like, okay, I can play Madden GM all I want, but we have to play in the world of reality here. So it's like, okay, let's just say hypothetically you can only choose one or the other. Carlton Davis or Darius Slay. Okay, well, which one makes more sense? Which one has a higher upside? And that's what we're about to discuss here. So first and foremost, as always, let's just analyze the most basic stats that there is available. When you take a look at Darius Slay's career stats, this is what you're going to find. Darius Slay has 619 total tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries, 28 interceptions, 5 defensive touchdowns, 3 of which were through interception, 2 were through fumbles, 6 Pro Bowl selections, and he has a Super Bowl ring, which he just freshly acquired. Okay, so for a career perspective, Darius Slay, he's done rather damn well for himself. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Now, what about Carlton Davis? Carlton Davis, on the other hand, has only been playing from 2018 to current day. So he has not played nearly as long as Darius Slay has. And I'm sorry, my paper is just giving me a whole bunch of fits here, but we're going to fix that right now. So, what are Carlton Davis's stats? Carlton Davis has 380 total tackles. He has 14 tackles for loss. He has 4 forced fumbles, 6 fumble recoveries, 11 interceptions. He has no defensive touchdowns. He has not been selected to a Pro Bowl, but he does have a Super Bowl ring. So, when you take a look at the stats from that perspective, it's pretty evident that, Darius Slay has a much more fuller resume. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, but that's to be expected. The guy's played 6 years more than Carlton Davis. But when you take a look at the actual stats, it's not like Darius Slay has done extremely well more compared to Carlton Davis. Because let's think about this. Carlton Davis has 14 tackles for loss, whereas, Darius Slay, I said, had only 16? And Darius Slay has been playing for 6 more years. He also has almost the same amount of forced fumbles. Actually, he has more forced fumbles. And on top of that, the same amount of fumble recoveries or more. And when you take a look at the tackles, Carlton Davis has 380 total tackles. Darius Slay has 619. And again, Darius Slay's got only 6 years more than Carlton Davis. So when we're actually talking about it from a statistical perspective, if you were to double, in essence, what Carlton Davis already had in terms of the amount of time that, Darius Slay has, the only thing really that, Darius Slay would still have more of than Carlton Davis would be interceptions, but it really wouldn't be by much. So from a career perspective, really the only thing Darius Slay has is the fact that he's been to 6 Pro Bowls. He's actually gotten into the end zone in terms of defensive touchdowns, which that's not a small achievement. That's actually rather big because it's hard as hell to score on defense. But again, you guys all know the same thing about me. I never just stop at the basics. If we're going to have a true honest-to-God conversation about this, we have to go in depth. We have to take a look at what the stats of, in-depth analytics look like. So, okay, what do the in-depth stats look like? What do the analytics look like? What does the actual logical argument look like? So again, let's do this. What does Darius Slay's career in-depth stats look like? This is what they look like. Darius Slay from 2013 until now has allowed a 59.4 completion percentage rate. He's allowed just a smidge under 7,000 passing yards. He has allowed 7.3 yards on average an attempt, 12.3 yards on average a completion, 41 touchdowns to 28 interceptions, 84.3 pass rating against quarterbacks, and has an average of 71.5 PFF in terms of coverage grade. Now, how did I get that average PFF coverage grade? Very simple. I just added up all the coverage grades from his career, and then I divided it by the number of years he's been in the NFL. That's how I got 71.5. Because I know that's not how PFF does their numbering system, but I don't give a damn. I'm making my own number up in that regard. And I don't think many people are going to argue with me when it comes to that, because I think that's a pretty fair representation if you were to take a look at the entirety of all the numbers that are in Darius Slay's career. Okay, what about Carlton Davis on the other hand? What does his numbers look like? Flip it over there. Carlton Davis has a 58.1 completion percentage rate given up. He's given up just a smidge over 4,200, just a smidge over 4,200 yards. He has given up 7.6 in average per attempt, 13.1 an average per completion. He's given up 29 touchdowns to 11 interceptions with a 91.3 passer rating, and he has on average a 65.8 PFF coverage grade. Now, when you take a look at the in-depth stats for the career, now when we break it down that way, it is extremely evident that Slay has had the more successful and the more productive career. Now, I'm going to say that word again. Let me say it one more time. Career. Because again, if we're talking about the career lifespan of a player, then yes, Darius Slay has been successful much more so than Carlton Davis has. But again, Darius Slay has played 6 extra years, so in essence, he's had 6 more opportunities to get his career numbers to look a certain type of way. Plus, on top of that, we also have to understand something. Darius Slay was playing back when the league was still not quite as pass happy as it was. It was just starting to. Now the league is literally pass happy all damn day long. But that is just the career numbers. And again, that's why I state that as heavily as I can. Because if we're really going to have a conversation about this, we have to go and take a look at how the players did the previous season. Okay, well, what does that look like? Now we're going to get into some really interesting conversation here, folks. Now we're actually going to start having a conversation that is really interesting. And why do I say that? Well, here's the reason why. When you take a look at Darius Slay's statistics for the 2024 season, you're going to get a very, very interesting picture. Here's what it looks like. In 2024, Darius Slay allowed 50 completion percentage rate for 371 yards, 5.8 yards per average attempt, 11.6 yards average per completion, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, had 12 pass breakups, a 78.3 passer rating, with a 68.9 PFF coverage grade, and a 67.6 total defensive grade from PFF. Okay, I'm just going to say this right now. Every single thing about Darius Slay's numbers looks absolutely good until you get to the PFF numbers. It's like, oh, low touchdowns, interceptions, lots of pass breakups, low passer rating, extremely low pass completion percentage. Okay, I like this. What's not to like? And then you take a look at the PFF numbers, and it's like, well, wait a minute here. That doesn't correlate. That makes no damn sense. What's going on here? So I had to ask myself that question, especially when I then took a look at Carlton Davis's numbers. Because what are Carlton Davis's numbers? This is where it really got really fun for me. Carlton Davis, according to PFF, allowed 59.7 completion percentage rate, had almost 600 yards given up, 8.1 yards per attempt, 13.6 yards per completion, 3 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, an 87.9 passer rating. But the PFF grades were substantially better. He had a 72.1 coverage grade and a 74.5 total defense grade. So I'm like, wait a minute here. Okay. At first glance, I'm like, Slay played better than Davis in terms of the fact that he gave up nearly 10% less in terms of completion percentage. He has almost 10 points lower in terms of passer rating, and he gave up 2 yards less per completion attempt. Or sorry, per completion. Pardon me, that's a little bit of an oxymoronic statement there. But, like I noted, the PFF grades don't make sense. How is it that Carlton Davis gave up more numbers in terms of the basic stats, but yeah, when it comes to the PFF analytical grades, his grades are substantially better than Darius Slay's? That's when I had to put on my thinking cap. That's when I had to put on my logic thought processor. Here's why I believe that's the circumstances of why these two players are so vastly different in terms of their grades. Let's talk about the defenses that these guys played with. When you take a look at Carlton Davis's numbers, those numbers, while they don't look the absolute greatest, those are still pretty damn solid numbers. It's sub 90. He had 2 interceptions, sub 60 completion percentage. That's pretty damn good for a cornerback. So, okay, that right there tells me that Carlton Davis, even at face value, didn't play bad for the Detroit Lions last year. He actually played pretty damn solid. But if you take those numbers and you put it inside of the situational awareness that the Lions defense was in last year, those numbers look way better than what they normally would. Because let's again go back, Lions fans, and let's remember something. This Lions defense was extremely battered, and it was a depleted defense for most of the year. I mean, for crying out loud, we lost how many starters to IR on defense? Like 16, 17 different guys? So think about it. When you lose that many guys to IR, that means you're going to have more pressure put on the players that are already out there trying to perform. But what made it particularly difficult for Carlton Davis, as we already know, is he didn't have a solid pass rush element for most of the year. Think about this, folks. You have to actually think about this and do some numbering when it comes to the actual weeks and days and all that nonsense. We lost Hutch in the third quarter of the game against the Cowboys, right? Well, the Lions didn't make the trade for Darius Smith until November 5th of 2024. And obviously we already knew that Marcus Davenport was already on IR at that point. So at that point it's like, well, wait a minute here. Week 6 at the Cowboys, November 5th, 2024, but as we all know, Darius Smith, he didn't even suit up until November 17th against the Jaguars. So that means that Carlton Davis, along with the other cornerbacks, we're only talking about Carlton Davis here because Carlton Davis is the only one that's really under having a contract issue in terms of he was a good cornerback, and we're talking about bringing him back or bringing back, Darius Slay. Carlton Davis had next to no or little pass rush consistency for over a month. And anybody that knows anything about football ought to know that when cornerbacks have next to no pass rush, it is a living nightmare to try and stop receivers. Because the rules are set up nowadays where it's like, well, you can't really grab them, you can't really do much in terms of coverage, so it's like you're kind of being told to guard somebody without having the ability to guard them. So the best way to get after an offense's pass ability is to get after the quarterback. Because trying to do anything with the receivers is damn near impossible. And the reason why is because when you're talking about these cornerbacks with no pass rush, that means you have to try and cover even longer. But again, that always plays to the wide receiver's advantage. So think about this. Let me just put this in perspective for you. If you take a look at the first 5 games that the Lions played, the ones they had with Hutch, the Lions had 15 sacks in those 5 games. I'm not a mathematician, but I know 5 times 3 equals 15. So that means on average, the Lions were getting 3 sacks a game when Hutch was in the lineup. The next 4 games after that, the ones that we didn't have any pass rushing help, the Lions only got 9. Well, again, what's 9 divided by 15? That's 60. That means there was a 40% drop in production from when we had Hutch to when we didn't have Hutch until we got Darius. Think about that. That is a lot of sack production that just automatically goes right out the door. And then, I know some people are going to say, well, David, the Lions pass rush, according to PFF, is ranked 11th. Okay, well, let's understand something here. That's mostly buoyed by the fact that freaking Hutchinson's, pass rushing grade is like absolutely bewildering. I think it's like a 95 or 96. Like, he was almost as perfect of a pass rusher this year until he got injured as you could possibly have. So that number is a little bit miscued because of the fact that, one, Hutch did so well, but also the fact that Zadarius Smith, when he came in, he was actually a solid addition for us there as well. So it's not really a true reflection of the effectiveness of our pass rush. If you want to get a true reflection, it's better to go to freaking ESPN analytics and take a look at the pass rush win rate that the Lions had, which, you want to know what that was? That was 35%, which ranked 25th according to ESPN analytics. So 7 spots from the damn bottom. That is more of an indicative picture of what our overall pass rush element looked like for the entirety of the year. And if you still don't believe how drastic of losing Hutch was to our cornerback's ability to cover, take a look at this. In the game against the Cowboys, when we had Hutch for 3 of those quarters, that was one of Carlton Davis's best games according to PFF. He had an 89.9 coverage grade. The very next week, when we played the Vikings and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, that grade went from an 89.9 to a 38.5, which was subsequently the worst graded game that Carlton Davis had that year. Think about that. He went from having one of his best games the week prior when we had Hutch to then the very next week when we had lost Hutch for the very first week not having him, he has the worst game graded of the year according to PFF. That ought to tell you something. That's pretty indicative. So the point I'm trying to make here is that Davis had a massive amount of adverse conditions to contend with while dealing with all these different top wide receivers and having little to no pass rush for 1 quarter of his season. So, okay, what about Darius Slay? Did Darius Slay have to contend with any of this? No. And I'm not trying to sound smug or any kind of way, but it's just simply the truth. Darius Slay, okay, what did the Eagles' pass rush look like according to ESPN? It was at a 43%, 8th best in the NFL over the course of the year. Then when you go to PFF, they even back it up. PFF pass rush grade was ranked 90, the 2nd best pass rushing grade element according to PFF. So top 10 according to ESPN, top 2 according to PFF. And then you take a look at the injury composition, the picture. That's right. How many pass rushers did the real Eagles lose? They lost Brandon Graham for the majority of the year until they got him back for the Super Bowl. But otherwise, they had Josh Sweat, they had Milton, they had Carter, they had Davis, they had Nolan Smith. I mean, they had more than enough pass rushing elements to compensate losing Brandon Graham. So if we realistically want to compare apples to apples here, Carlton Davis had to cover with virtually next to no pass rush, while Darius Slay still had an absolute butt ton of freaking pass rush to work with. So when you compare the fact of why Carlton Davis had a better PFF grade in both coverage and in total defense, it was because he had less to work with. Whereas Darius Slay still had a full defense composition in terms of actual pass rushing element, defensive backfield, the whole 9 yards. But there's one last element we have to realistically consider here, and I know, I'm going to say this right now, I know it's going to sound tedious as hell, but we have to bring it up. It's the biological factor. It's age. As much as I like Slay, the issue that I have with him more than anything is the fact that guy's 34 years old. For a cornerback, that is well past your prime playing years. Well, Davis is only 28. I've been bringing it up the entire episode. Davis is 6 years less in terms of playing time, but that also means he's 6 years younger. So let's think about this. At 28 years old, Carlton Davis at least has 4 more good quality years of playing time left. Whereas Darius Slay, like we said, he's looking to play 1 more year and he's done. Well, let's understand something here. Not only is that a problem, but I have to ask this question. With the age factor, how good can we realistically expect Darius Slay to play in an extremely man-heavy concept defense like what Kelvin Shepard is likely to run? Again, I understand that Shepard is not Glenn, but it is highly likely that since we played a heavy man defense last year, we are going to play a heavy man defense this year. Well, knowing that, you have to ask yourself the question if Slay would still be able to maintain a high quality of coverage given such a high use of a physically demanding coverage scheme. And again, based off of the in-depth analytics, I don't think he can. And again, I'm not trying to, douse fire on this, But you have to take a look at the numbers. Again, let me show you what I mean here. If you take a look at Darius Slay's coverage use stats with the Eagles for this previous season, 2024, versus what Carlton Davis did, you are going to get an eye-opening revelation. And I mean that, eye-opening. Darius Slay in 2024 with the Eagles was only in man coverage 24.2% of the time. That was tied 46th out of all cornerbacks. He only took 107 total man coverage snaps. That's ranked 58th. But in contrast, he was in zone coverage 54.1% of the time, which even that, as high of a difference as it was to the man coverage, was only ranked 52nd. And he only had 239 total zone snaps, which was ranked 69th. So not under any of the parameters did he actually crack or come anywhere close to the top 25. What about Carlton Davis? Carlton Davis, man coverage usage, 45.1% of the time, ranked fifth most out of all cornerbacks. 211 total man coverage snaps, tied ninth. 45.9% zone coverage, ranked 74th. 215 total zone snaps, which is ranked 75th. So, okay, here. Let's point some out here. First and foremost, you need to pay attention to the Carlton Davis coverage use stats. Carlton Davis played the same amount almost of man snaps as he did to zone snaps. But the amount of man coverage comparative to the rest of the league, it's not even in the same damn ballpark. Freaking Carlton Davis is almost playing man coverage 50% of the damn time. In fact, when I took a look at the numbers, there was only one cornerback that did play man coverage 50% of the time or more. You want to know who it was? Oh, it was our own Amik Robertson. But think about that. Carlton Davis, 45.1% of the time spent in man coverage, 211 man total snaps, versus Darius Slay, who only was in man coverage 24.2% of the time and only did it for 107 total snaps. That means that Carlton Davis doubled pretty much Darius Slay in every compartment of that whole thing. Because he had double, almost, the total man snaps. He was only off by 3. And he almost doubled him in terms of the actual man usage percentage. Think about that. So what I can clearly see here is that, one, Slay is not able to play a high amount of coverage snaps in terms of man coverage anymore. Because now he's become a predominant zone coverage kind of corner. The reason I can say that is because I also went back to 2023. In 2023, his man coverage was at 30.1%. His zone coverage was at 50.2%. So the previous year, it was 6% more man coverage, and it was 4% less zone coverage. So from 2023 to now, he's become even less man coverage and more zone coverage. That's not going to work in our defense. It's entirely the exact opposite. But on top of that, because of his age, he's also getting less use as well. Because think about this, folks. Freaking Darius Slay only missed 3 games this year. He played 14 games. When Darius Slay first came in, you were playing 16 games. So he, in essence, is used to playing 16 games most of the time. So let's just say he missed the 3 games this year, but in usual, like what he's used to, he only missed 2. He posted the second lowest amount of snaps in his career since he was a rookie. So let me put that out there. When he was a rookie, I think he only played like 300-something snaps. Second lowest of his career at 34 years old. When you take a look at Carlton Davis, yeah, it was literally one less snap than Slay, even though Carlton Davis missed an entire extra game than what Darius Slay did. So Carlton Davis was only one snap short of what Darius Slay played, but missed an entire extra game on top of that. That's my point. Slay's age is really starting to catch up and starting to show with him, and he's not only playing less man coverage, but he's playing less overall. So my whole point with this episode, to wrap it up, because it has been long, is while I like the idea of Slay coming back, the questions that I've asked, they've posed some real concerns. One, can Slay still play at a high level, demanding to play high man coverage? Probably not. Would Slay like to take a team-friendly deal to come back and play, knowing that the Lions have all these other contractual obligations they have to take for? I don't know, but I would not be willing to bet the house money on it. Then, number 3, is Slay at this point a better option than Carlton Davis, considering the difference in circumstances that these guys had to play with in 2024, and considering the fact that Carlton Davis had a much higher level of play considering those circumstances? Again, probably not. And then finally, you have to ask yourself this question. Would it be smart to give up a cornerback that's in his prime, that's 28 years old, after we just traded a third-round draft pick for him last year, in essence, for a one-year rental, to then go out and give another one-year rental on a contract to an aging cornerback that is not really a coverage fit for us anymore? Again, doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense in my opinion. So again, I have no problem with the thought process of bringing back Darius Slay for old time's sakes and for sentimentality reasons. But if I'm looking at it from a business decision, a logic decision, from a scheme fit decision, it just does not fit. I'm not trying to be the Debbie Downer. I'm not trying to be a wet blanket. You guys ask me for the facts, I give you the cold hard facts. And the facts are, it ain't a good fit. It is a no bueno. But anyway, I'm going to end this conversation because it has gone on well long enough, and I just want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these. Also encourage you all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage you all. Please make sure you hit that bell notification icon. Also want to highly encourage you all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Share anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. Also want to highly encourage y'all, please, if you guys liked the content, and I hope you guys did, I hope you guys also got something out of the content, whether this is your first time watching or whether you guys have been watching for so long, I hope you guys leave a good comment. I hope you guys enjoyed everything. I hope you guys got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. You guys are an awesome crowd, and I enjoy making content for you guys as much as I possibly can. God bless, my friends, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.